Hello everyone, so this is Shola Bulu, and today I'm just going to go try to run very briefly through some of the, I've done a presentation on this, some of the content that I'm going to be using for the course that is coming up on the 26th of June, focused on public sector policy communications and political communications. So I had done this as a presentation, but I just thought, let me just do a short version of this. I'm going to try to time myself and see. So first of all, what are the 10 basic skills that a highly effective public sector communicator should have? Now, public sector communications must have the full spectrum of the whole PR and communications shebang. So that's why I have about 10 things listed here. If you're working in other sectors, and also this applies to the NGOs as well, non-governmental organizations, but if you are working in other sectors, you may or may not need some of these, but this 10, this is like the full spectrum basic things that if you're working in public sector or institutional sector or NGOs, you need to have. First of all, communication strategy and planning skills. You have to be able to know how to set up, establish a communications plan by yourself, develop it. You must understand what media and communication strategy is all about. All of that, you really, really must know it to a very large extent. So media and communication strategy, all of that, you must know it. Data research, analytics, KPIs, metrics, and measurements, you must really be good in that. You must also know public relations, media, community relations, and stakeholder management skills. There's a whole stakeholder matrix thing. You need to know that. You need to understand the importance of stakeholder consultation, communication, engagement, face-to-face events, and all of that. So not just digital, but in person as well. Public relations, publicity, advertising, very, very important in public sector setting. Also for policy and political, really. In fact, everything here also applies to all three sectors. Media relations, very important. How to relate with the media, you understand the landscape, difference between print, TV, radio, when to use them, national, regional, local papers, what an op-ed means, background briefings, all of that, how to develop a press kit, how to write a press statement, present a speech. You need to know all of that. And even if you need to know all of it anyway, and how to leverage on those skills, you need to have those networks in that space as well. Social media management skills, you need to understand all the social media channels, the platforms, how they differ from one another, how the digital communities in that space are. You need to have audience intelligence. This is very key because I see a lot of people not understanding. For instance, Twitter is a place where you just cannot write anything. The kind of stuff you can get away with Facebook and nobody's going to call you out, or Instagram. You can't try it on Twitter. So you really need to understand how those platforms work and the digital communities that work there and the sensitivities. This is very important in public sector. Otherwise, you put out some messaging, it will not land well. In Facebook, you post it, nobody's going to say anything. Twitter, men, they're like coming down at you and you're wondering, it's not the same message. Yeah, it's the same message, different platform. So that audience intelligence, you need to have it. Social media listening, data insights, community management is very key. You have to know how to manage your community on each platform. Like I said, it's very Instagram followers are generally very loyal, so you'll not find a lot of bad comments on Instagram. Twitter is a very dangerous place, so you have to know that. So social media landscape for the country that you're operating in, for the sector, for the region, all of that, you need to know that. So brand management skills as well. This is very important in public sector. I think in public sector, people are not really very focused on the brand, and I wonder why. Because every public sector administration or agency needs to have it has a brand, so you really need to be concerned. For instance, if state government, what's the state government brand? The agencies, what's the Ministry of Health's brand? Even if it's at a state, what's the state Ministry of Health's brand? How is it perceived, not just by your internal view, but by people watching on the outside, but the state as a whole? Do they see you as effective? Do they see you as present? And what can I do about that in terms of positioning, differentiation, and all of that? If you're doing communications 21st century and you really want to be on the board, these are things you should be thinking about. Those, not just having events, putting up banners and canopies. That way of doing this thing, the time has passed. And I think that's the message that we want to bring across with this course, that made us focus it on public sector and political context, because these are things that are better known, I think, in the private sector, but I think the understanding of this in the public sector varies, and that transition is still ongoing. So again, content strategy. How do you need to tell your story? Does it need to be visual? Do I need to create content? Again, I'm not seeing so much imagination in this space. They just take photograph, they are cutting ribbon. Do you understand? Nobody's telling us. They're not giving us this road. How many households? Who is this serving? Why is it important? Which place is it opening to the other? Show us a map. Give us, use infographics. I know your audience is very diverse, and so just think about it. If this What is the story I'm trying to pass on, and what do I want the audience to know? How do I want them to feel about this, and what do I need them to do? So effective audience targeting is all part of that strategy. Then issues and crisis management. This is a big one in public sector in particular, because if you don't know how to respond and manage your response, particularly social media crisis, you're going to miss it. You have to know how to frame your narrative, how to analyze sentiment, and how to resolve it, and not just doing it according to what you think and following the party line or whatever. It's about how the external world and the public is going to view what you're saying. So I think there's just a lot that needs to happen in that space, and we're going to be touching on all of that in the course on the 26th. So again, reputation management skills. I'm running out of time now. Evidence-based evidence-based communication. How do I make sure that everything that we communicate, there's a tell and show, people can actually see? How do you have a structured and thematic approach? I think this is so important in public sector, where you should be communicating according to themes. What's the vision of that, of your agency, your institution, or whatever? And what kind of theme are you working through from January to December? And how are you pushing that for? What are the reputation themes? Do you want to be a responsive government? Do you want to be an inclusive government, or you're an inclusive agency? Are you talking about service to the people? Are you talking about reliability, consistency? What is the reputation pillar that you are building your communication strategy on? I don't know. So these are things that if you're really doing 21st century best in class communications, you should be doing. Visual storytelling skills. Again, how do you tell your human stories? How are you using infographics, creative content, and all of that? We're not seeing a lot of this. There are a few shining lights here and there, but it could be done much better. Excellent messaging, writing skills. Again, speeches, commentary. If you're working in the public sector, you need to have the messaging and writing, because you have to be able to write speeches, write commentaries, short, whatever, and not flowery writing, please. All of that. Anyway, that's why a lot of the messaging doesn't land well. The backlash that they get, it's because of the poor, very, very poor writing skills. When you're writing on behalf of an organization and an institution, you cannot be writing as if you're writing on behalf of your I don't understand, do you understand, one personal person. You can't write the same way. The tone should be different, the language should be different, the words you choose should be different. So and I'm just seeing people just blurring that. So a corporate and institutional response is coming across very personal, very pedantry, very, very derogatory, very aggressive. It's not right. The tone is all wrong. And I think it's about the writing skills there. So public speaking, I think if you're also going to be in the public sector space, it's important to have good public speaking skills, because they can always call you up at any time and tell you to say something, whether you prepare for it or not. It's good to have executive presence if you're that kind of person that you can command the room. And I don't know if you can really work on some of those things, but I think you can work on presence. If I think it can be worked on, but some people actually are born with it. And if you know that you have it, sort of like lean into it, so that when you stand, people are like, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody like, all the eyes on you. You need that to be able to deliver your message. Oratory skills, large and small crowds, outdoor, unscheduled, unscheduled. In fact, public sector, a lot of unscheduled speaking engagement. Just jab the microphone in your face, so you need to be ready for that. So these are things that I would say you should work on. And like I said, we'll be talking about all this and more on the 26th of June. So if you work for an NGO institution, government agency, or you consult for them, or you'd like to, or you just want to learn generally about the spectrum of PR, public relations, and communication skills, how to do it right, join us on the 26th. Enrollment ends on the Tuesday, June 24th. We'll be looking out for you. Thank you and take care.